You got to work your mojo a little better, brother.
I know. I am a very selfless dude when it comes to that shit.
What? No, it's back. Give it to the quarterback. No, we got the running back. What?
Straight off the couch.
Here are the stories we're going to be chasing today.
Well, we finished week 17. We're looking into week 18. The playoff picture is becoming a little more clear. Let me bring on my broadcast partner, the ever affable and effervescent Duke Kaboom. Duke, how are you, buddy?
Oh, buddy, we're back on that, eh? Okay. I had a good Christmas. How about you?
It was a day. Let's the football games could have been better.
Well, definitely. It's funny because you and I were talking on Christmas Eve. Let's set the tone, and hopefully we have a great week. It's nice that the games were all spaced out a little evenly so that we didn't have to jump feeds from one to another on Sunday. But what a disappointment Christmas Day was. Yeah,
let's kick it right off. The first game on Wednesday afternoon, Christmas Day, was the Chiefs at the Steelers. Adam and I were both expecting a little more out of the Steelers. The Chiefs go ahead and They just bitch slapped them. It was 29 at Kansas City, 10 Pittsburgh. I think this is maybe a Pennsylvania tradition where one team has to fall apart in December. Last year it was Philadelphia. This year it's Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh seems to get to like 9 wins and they're like, okay, we're good. We're over 500. Bye.
Yeah, and they didn't look right. They struggled the whole game. This is one of the few games this year that the Chiefs won by more than one score.
Yeah, 19 points. I'll be honest, this game was over in the first quarter. It was 13-0 at one point, and I was just like, "Oh man, I hope the Steelers actually, do something." And they didn't throw a touchdown up. They didn't throw any points on the board into their first drive of the second half.
Yeah, it was pretty pathetic looking. I was really disappointed because I expected more from the Steelers, and if I remember right, I would have picked them. And that brings us to our late window.
Yeah, we both picked the Steelers. It was we were just like something's got to give. Steelers and Ravens are competing for that AFC North Division title, and we said that the Ravens had the benefit of watching the Steelers either win or lose and figure out what they had to do. Steelers didn't come to play, and that takes us into the late afternoon game,
which also had playoff implications. We're looking at the Ravens and Texans. Texans were playing basically to stay alive in the playoff hunt, and the Ravens wanted to stay ahead of the Steelers. And the Ravens went out there and basically proved that right now the AFC North, they're unbeatable, 31-2. There's only the safety that the Texans scored.
Yeah, so Texans they've locked up their division, but they still could win games for seeding, right? So Ravens came in, and I can't believe the Ravens. Everybody bitched about this 3 games in 10-day schedule with the Christmas stuff and everything, and the Ravens have outscored their opponents 100-33 in those 3 games.
Ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous.
Right? In 10 days.
It's bad enough you had a pretty good offense before Derrick Henry. You add Derrick Henry to the mix, and forget about it.
Yeah, and Lamar's still playing at MVP level. Derrick Henry, you give him the rock, and the guy can get 10 or more yards, it seems like, on every carry. Just insane. And
the only reason why we're going to talk about the Thursday game is we had to pick it, number one. But number two, it did have some playoff implications for the Seahawks. Adam has a theory that the Thursday game sets the tone for the week, and oh my God, I hope that wasn't true after watching the Bears lose to the Seahawks 6-3, no offensive touchdowns, all field goals.
Yeah, so thank goodness Thursday and Monday night football games are over, because Thursday can no longer set the tone for the week for us. A 6-3 game, this was probably the most boring game that I've seen in a long time.
It was pathetic. I don't want to talk about it any further.
Yeah, we can move on.
Chargers, Patriots, that had a little bit to do with seeding. The Chargers went ahead and took care of business there. We really don't need to dig into it a whole lot. I'm going to save Adam the pain, unless you want to go ahead and self-inflict a little pain.
I mean, the Chargers put up a 40-burger on the Patriots. The only thing the Patriots have going for them is their third pick overall. It's let's move on.
And one game that had a lot of playoff implications. It was a fun game to watch. Adam and I were texting during it. Broncos-Bengals was a pretty good game. However, Cincinnati goes ahead and pulls out the win there, but they're both playing to stay alive in the playoffs, and Joe Cool looked as cool as could be.
That game was a banger. That was probably, you and I said that it was probably going to be a hard one to top for the rest of the weekend because it was exciting football. It had everything that we wanted in a football game. Broncos could have locked up a playoff spot with a win. Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase Brown all did their parts, and they got a shot if all the help falls in the right direction for them, and they can pull off a win Saturday.
And we're not going to cover all the like the Raiders and the Saints. We're not going to cover that. Those guys are out of the playoffs. We're going to try and keep this playoff centric as much as possible. But the one thing that we can briefly touch on, because it did have to do with playoff record, Panthers at Buccaneers, and our boy Baker almost put up a 50-burger, threw for 4 or 5 touchdowns. He looked MVP status.
Yeah, Bucks. I think the duck on the field actually just was a good luck charm or something because they're
going to be bringing that duck back every week now.
Like the cameraman almost missed the fumble recovery or the blocked field goal run for touchdown punt or whatever it was. I don't know what it was because they were looking at this duck on the field.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Bucks players got the ball and running into the end zone. I was like, what just happened?
Yeah, a North American mallard, Drake, just walked across the field, and he was there for quite a while, man.
Yeah, he was hanging out. It was kind of funny. So here's something, just an unusual stat on the Panthers. The Panthers had Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield on their roster at the same time and didn't know what to do with them.
They had Baker lining up at defensive tackle on the practice squad, on the scout team.
Yeah, on the scout team. Just so many things. Like Darnold and Mayfield right now are playing lights out football, and the Panthers had them both at the same time.
And couldn't figure it out. Yeah, and they
couldn't figure it out.
And I think they had their young rookie at the same time as well. So, what are you going to do? And that brings us to the next game with playoff implications. Sunday afternoon, late window, Green Bay going into Minnesota. This topped the Denver-Cincinnati game, and we didn't think that was going to be possible.
Yeah, that was crazy fun to watch. The Vikings dominated early, and Green Bay is definitely a second-half team.
Yeah, but the Vikings just they were putting on a clinic. It looked surgical what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean their defense is amazing in the first half. I find in the second half they might not just have the stamina. They fatigue a little sooner.
Well, when you blitz,
tend to give up more points in the second half.
When you blitz that often, you're going to be a little tired.
True. So,
what do they blitz like 60% of the time?
Yeah, Vikings end up taking the number 1 seed for a little bit because Detroit didn't play until Monday night. So Vikings were in that number 1 seed position on the NFL standings just for a little bit. How crazy is that? The Vikings are 14-2. Did you even see that coming?
Nobody saw that coming. Most of the NFL prognosticators predicted the Vikings to be at the bottom of the NFC North this year. And they're just
and the Pack at 11-5 in the same division. Like that's just some crazy stuff.
Yeah. And that brings us to our Sunday night football game, another one with playoff implications because the Falcons needed to keep up with Baker.
The Bucks. Yeah.
And they couldn't do it. The Commanders played really good, solid football. That one went down to the wire. That was a fun game to watch.
Yeah. OT game. Was super interesting. Ultimately, Commanders punch their ticket to the playoffs, and the Falcons take the loss, which catapults the Bucks into that division lead. So it's all going to come down to Week 18 for a couple of teams. Some honorable mentions through the games. Not that we were, watching them. Cardinals went into SoFi Stadium to play the Rams. Rams won, but they did not lock up a playoff berth. until the following day. They had to scoreboard watch to finally lock up their division. The Giants smashed the shit out of the Colts, eliminating the Colts from playoff contention.
Did anybody have Giants scoring 45 on their bingo card? Because I didn't.
So it's the most Giants thing ever because they didn't have a shot at the playoffs. They hadn't won at home since last season. And with this win, they basically give up the number 1 overall pick, which was just such a Giants thing to do.
I think the Raiders won too, so I think it's currently resting in New England.
yeah, it's certainly New England looks like they have the number 1 spot, but I don't know how that's going to fare out after 18. The other games in the league that looked like they were going to have some playoff implications, but it turns out they didn't. The Bills just smashed the shit out of the Jets. The Bills can't move up or down in the seeding right now. They are locked in at the 2.
And they're never going to catch Kansas City. So
the Eagles stomp all over the Cowboys badly.
Did you see at the end of the game? They showed a little clip. The Philadelphia fans, who are, they don't call the city of brotherly love for nothing. They're standing in front of Jerry Jones's box, just yelling profanities at him and screaming at him and telling him he sucks.
I saw one guy say, "Keep up the good work, Gary." and full Eagles uniform, just like, "Keep up the good work, Gary. We love coming here," and blah, blah, blah. And he was just like heckling the shit out of him. So Eagles lock up their division. They look like they are going to be the number 2 seed. I don't think anybody can move past them at this point.
And that brings us to the last game of the week last night, and it did have some playoff implications because the Lions needed to keep pace with the Vikings, and they did so. I didn't see the Niners coming out and performing the way they did. It took almost 3.5 quarters of football before the Lions figured out what they needed to do to beat them. And the Niners had 2 missed field goals, which factored into the final score of Lions 40, Niners 34.
And a missed PAT.
Yeah.
So leaving those 7 points off the scoreboard actually cost the Niners the game.
It really did. And I'm sure Shanahan's probably thinking, what am I going to do here? Because you can't really bring in a new kicker for 1 week when you're out of the playoffs. I mean...
So they're going to go back to, I think they've got a lot of good pieces in place. They just had an unlucky season with injuries. So the Niners currently have 14 or 15 players on IR, which is about, I think they said $35 million in the salary.
Yes.
In salary.
$35 million in salary sitting in IR. And the only team with the worst record, or not worst record, but worst stat for that, the Lions.
Yeah. And they've got 19 sitting on IR, which is worth about $53 million, I think the stat was on that.
Sounds right, yeah.
2 teams going in like completely banged up, going at each other. Lions had a chip on their shoulder because the Niners took them out of that NFC Championship game last year. That was the game where the Lions were up like 21-0, and San Francisco figured it out and came back. So they had a chip on their shoulder. They wanted to come back and win this. On paper, it made no difference what happened in that game. Niners are eliminated from the playoffs. Lions didn't need to win because ultimately it is what happens with them and the Vikings next week. Now, the only thing that would matter with the loss is if the Vikings and them tied next week. Lions, if they lost, the Vikings would be the number 1 seed, which would drop the Lions down to 5. So we
can talk about that when we get to next week's games, absolutely. But yeah, that one's huge. That one's going to have some huge implications. Do we want to talk about standings, or you want to bring in the coach?
So I just want to say that last night, Lions at Niners, it's the first time we'd seen 10 plus touchdowns.
There was just
in a game.
It was crazy, man. Every time, I mean, there was what? I don't think there was a punt for a quarter and a half. I think it was.
Oh no, there was no punts. That's what the stat is: 10 plus touchdowns and 0 punts in a game.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Right. So, and I mean, it was a fun game to watch. But it was probably my favorite just because the week really started off rough. Those Christmas games were just not competitive.
They looked,
that Thursday night game was the most boring thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Those two games on Christmas, they all four teams came out flat. They all looked like they didn't want to be there.
Yeah, and like the rest of the games were either blowouts or boring.
Yeah.
So the Christmas schedule really wasn't excellent this year, and week 17 you'd think, oh, there's a lot to play for because teams are jockeying for those playoff positions, but was really only one spot open, wild card on, a division title on one side and a wild card on the other. So only one playoff spot in AFC and NFC each. There wasn't really a lot to get excited about in football.
The good news is Netflix live stream didn't stutter like it did during the Tyson Paul fight. So.
Oh yeah, so I think the audience would have been a lot smaller for football. I think boxing, like big marquee boxing matches, have a huger audience. Like you get people from all over the world. I know in the Philippines they're very big on boxing.
Yeah.
So that entire country was probably tuned into Netflix. I don't think so much for football.
I agree.
So boxing is a very world-renowned sport. You can, every country has its own boxing league, and then big marquee superstar fights are definitely, those pay-per-view tickets are going to go through the roof. Netflix, I don't know what they are going to do. Obviously, they're making deals to get into the sporting event realm.
Live sports streaming is what they're heading for. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's all about the bottom line for them. I think they're losing subscribers because their money's it's just more and more money every year to have a subscription with them, and their content doesn't change all that much. Beginning of the month they get a couple new shows, and then people binge a season or whatever, and there's nothing to watch.
Sorry, I was just looking at something here real quick. Okay, let's go ahead and bring him in because there's not a lot to talk about, but there's a couple of things we can.
He looks sad today.
Well, he knows it's going to go away soon, and You okay there, little Coach Blackwell? I mean, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, but you all right, man? I'm a little worried about you.
Hi Terry. Hi Adam. I had a good Christmas. I hope you boys did too, but I'll be honest, the fashion world's just pants right now.
I'm sorry to hear that, Coach.
It's always the slowest point of the year for fashion. Even in Europe, there's not a lot going on, but we're gearing up for big shows. So I don't have a lot of talk about this week, unfortunately, boys. It looks like everybody's gone back to their basic bitch uniforms. There was a couple exceptions. The Commanders came out in their burgundy onesies. Christmas time, you gotta sit around the Christmas tree in your onesie.
It did have a very, very Father Christmas vibe to it, yeah.
Very Victorian.
Yeah.
And the only two that I need to mention this week, other than that, are the Houston Texans. They came out in their H-Town blue alternates, and they looked really good. But that's about all that looked good on that game. They did not do anything except dance around and look good in their H-Town blue.
Yeah, everything else is kind of flat, wasn't it? And you said there was a couple. You said there was a couple others. So who's another one there?
There's only one more, and the Philadelphia Eagles dressed to impress. They came out in those old throwback Kelly green uniforms. They look good, and so did the team, by the way.
I like the way the helmets look on that uniform for some reason. I don't know, the old fashioned eagle wings and the silver on the green, and
I just even like the sideline uniforms. Like all the coaches and stuff were wearing the old school eagle, just carrying the football around. I just loved it.
Well, all right, Coach. Go ahead and enjoy your New Year's Eve. Do you have big plans, partying or?
I'm gonna have a couple glasses of wine, maybe a charcuterie board or something like that, and I might not even make it till midnight. I'm getting old.
Yeah, you and me both. All right, buddy. Well, we'll see you later. I hope to see you next week. We'll have to keep an eye and see if there's any fashion for you to talk about.
Well, I'll come by next week because it'll be my last week with you guys before you guys go into your little playoffs, and I've got so many things going on overseas that I got to be there for that. Fashion's coming.
Sure, and I'm sure most of Europe is relying on you for your expertise. So
all the new lines have to hit the stores by spring. I got to be out there.
All right, see you later, Coach. Have a good day, buddy.
Happy New Year, boys.
And he goes sauntering out. I like the way he sachets a little, though. I mean, that's very, very, very,
He's
very.
He's got a little swagger.
Yeah. So here's the way things are breaking down. Right now, there's basically on the AFC side, there's basically one playoff window left, and Buffalo's locked up their division, and Baltimore and Pittsburgh are still fighting for spots in their division. Houston has locked up theirs, and Kansas City has locked up the number 1 seed, and the Chargers have locked up their playoff spot. The teams.
Yeah, let's talk about that for one moment. How about Jim Harbaugh being a absolute beast everywhere he goes?
I was aware of that. I wanted him to come to Chicago so bad it wasn't funny, but he and Kevin Warren have issues, so they never even had a conversation.
He turned that Chargers team around in one season.
Yeah, he did. So the games currently vying for that final playoff spot are Denver, Cincinnati, and Miami. So we have 3 teams vying for one spot. So that watch those games and who's going to fall where and all that fun stuff this coming week.
So the way it works there is Denver wins and they're in.
Yeah, Denver.
Simple as that.
Denver controls their fate right now. Sure, that is true.
Miami wins and Denver loses. Miami's in. If the Bengals win and Miami loses and Denver loses, the Bengals are in. It's such a weird. There's a lot that has to happen.
So let's go ahead and look at the AFC picture right now. Detroit and Minnesota are both 14-2. That Monday night game we're going to talk about in a second is going to determine who's the number 1 seed or who's the number 5 seed. That's how tight this race is. The winner of that game is the number 1 seed, and the loser will drop all the way down to number 5. But that's Detroit and Minnesota. Green Bay is also in the playoffs. They've locked up their spot. Wide open right now is the NFC South, Atlanta and Tampa Bay. It's going to come down to the last week. We're going to talk about that in a minute here. And on the West, we have the Rams, who have locked up the number 1 seed. Not the number 1 seed, but the number 1 spot in the West. Seattle, Arizona, and San Francisco did not make it, so they're all out. Thanks to the Rams winning the way they did, and they got a little help. But right now, the playoff spots that are open: NFC South between Tampa Bay and Atlanta, and that's it.
Yeah, and just that one wild card spot in the AFC, and those are the 2 spots that are available. I don't think any teams can really move up and down in the seeding, depending on these games, because I don't think these games change anything this weekend. But we'll get into the games. Let's start off with Saturday. Saturday is an all AFC North day. Crazy.
And Browns Ravens not going to have much seeding impact, so I'll watch it because I want to see the game, but it doesn't have a lot of impact, boys and girls. So you have to pay a lot of attention to that. But I think the Ravens are going to win that one handily over the Browns.
The Browns have not looked great, and they have quarterback issues. They're on their 3rd or 4th quarterback this year already, and they're a 3-13 team. Like, I'll be honest, start your 2nd, 3rd string guys, give them some reps, and let the Ravens handle business. But you know what? That rivalry there, that whole AFC North, they all hate each other.
Well, can you blame them? Look where they live. I mean, it's Cleveland. I'd want to get out of there too.
It's one of those. It's one of those. They don't like us, and we don't like them.
And the afternoon game on Sunday. I'm sorry, the evening game, because the first one actually starts at 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern. The Saturday night game, which starts at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Bengals at Steelers. This could have huge implications for both of these teams, depending on what happens elsewhere.
So, if the Ravens beat the Browns, which we fully expect them to do, The Ravens are in. They've locked it. All they have to do is beat the Browns.
Yep, that's it.
Because the Steelers are a game behind, and they've already beaten the Steelers anyway. So even if the Ravens lose and the Steelers win, the Ravens have the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So I don't even know why that isn't shown as locked up on NFL.com. But Ravens are going to beat the Browns. If the Browns beat the Ravens, I'll be shocked. The way the Bengals are playing right now, I can't see the Steelers winning this game.
I would not want to pick against the Bengals right now either, and especially with the Steelers falling apart in December like they have. So I'm going to go Bengals. Honorable mention game, Panthers at Falcons. The Falcons need to win that. And
yes.
And the Saints at Buccaneers, the Buccaneers need to win that. Otherwise, there's not a lot
if Falcons
going
and
on.
Bucs both win, Falcons are in because Falcons have the tiebreaker.
Right. So Buccaneers need to play well, and the Falcons need to play well. Falcons, good news for them. They're playing the Panthers, but in the end, the Panthers put up points last week, so who knows? And
not many though. That duck really affected their mojo.
It did. And then the Buccaneers are playing at home against the Saints. And maybe the duck will show up again. Who knows? But the Saints have
the Saints don't have anything left in the tank. They're pretty beaten up.
And another one that has some minor implications. The Chiefs at Broncos. The Broncos win and they're in.
Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen here? Do you the Chiefs have locked up the number 1 seed. So rest your guys, right? That's like what you want to do.
Maybe a little, but Andy Reid's one of those old school guys. I wouldn't be surprised to see his starters play the first half.
Okay. If it's me as a coach, I'm saying give these guys 3 weeks rest. Especially Mahomes, like that magic ankle that, we thought he was going in for like season-ending surgery, and then he just pops back up and plays the next week. So,
well, when you talk to Jesus every night, he does things for you.
Broncos need this game. You got to keep in mind, the Broncos had this game locked down last time they met each other, and that blocked field goal ended it.
They did, and they really took care of business really well. So it'll be a fun game to watch. I'm still hard pressed to go against the Chiefs just because they just.
I'm not picking it. I'm just hoping for excitement.
Another game that has minor playoff implications, but they're going to need a lot of help. Dolphins at Jets. The Dolphins need to win. Broncos need to lose, and who else needs to lose?
It doesn't matter. So
Bengals.
As long as the Dolphins win, they have the strength to schedule advantage over the Bengals. So Bengals and Dolphins can both win. It's just a matter of Broncos losing.
And that breaks down
Dolphins. Dolphins are in with a Broncos loss.
That breaks down the AFC
Dolphins
playoff
win.
picture for you. One last game to discuss, but this one, whoa, Nelly, we got a burner on this Monday Night Football. Well, it's not Monday, it's Sunday night. It's the Vikings going into Detroit. They're both 14-2. And this is for the whole marble. This is for everything. This is for the number 1 seed or the number 5 seed.
And it's crazy that a 14-2 team, or it's going to be a 14-3 team, obviously, is going to be the number 5 seed. How crazy is that?
It's insane, dude. It's just insane.
Both these teams have had fantastic seasons, overcame adversity. Let's start it off at the beginning of the year. Vikings had their quarterback of the future. He gets injured before the first game of the year. Their number 10 overall draft pick, J.J. McCarthy. They bring in Sam Darnold.
Actually, if I remember right, they brought in Sam Darnold before they drafted McCarthy.
Maybe you're correct. But
he was just going to be
he
was just going to be a placeholder, I thought.
Yeah, you and I were just sitting back going, okay, well, the Vikings are going to be like, an 8-8 team, and that wherever that ninth game falls on what side of the board, we just kind of figured they were mediocre with Sam Darnold and JJ not starting. Especially we know they re-signed Justin Jefferson to a huge contract, and we're always excited to see guys like that play. We knew their defense was good. But if you can't get JJ the ball, then, it doesn't matter. But then Sam Darnold comes in and he's like, he took him to like a 5-0 record in the first 5 games of the season. I was like, who are these Vikings?
And Darnold does not rely on just Jefferson. He spreads the ball around. So if you double Jefferson, he's going to find the next guy open. He's playing lights out football right now.
Yeah, Addison's another great player, and then you got T.J. Hawkinson, and there's so many good players on that team on both sides of the ball. I'm just shocked that Sam Darnold has like kind of a coming of age story, and like he's got more wins in Minnesota in his first year than I think he does in his entire career.
That's an accurate fact. And on the other side of the ball, the Lions they're dealing with a lot of adversity with the injuries, but their next man up is working. Where most teams' next man up, you're like, ooh. But this one, they're like, next man up. Oh, who'd we lose? Lost David Montgomery? Okay, we'll just go on with Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, and Reynolds had some good carries last night too. Their mentality. And we've been talking about their grit all season. They're just a gritty team. That whole thing, their whole community that they've built around, Dan Campbell just built his team the way he wanted it. And the guy's so emotional. He wears everything on his sleeve. Like he doesn't have a poker face.
Yeah, and that is fun to watch if you have a good high def TV when they show a wide shot or they show his face. Just watch Dan Campbell throughout the whole game because he's running down the sidelines with receivers a lot.
Yeah, when he's angry, when he's happy. Like there's no hiding anything. Like he'd be a shitty poker player. But yeah, that's a team that's been pretty wild to watch, especially with all the injuries. They had a stellar defense, and they've got like 17 on IR on defense right now.
Yeah,
and like 19 total players on IR, but 17 of them are huge defensive players. And they're just like next man up, next man up, next man up.
If they get that bye, they're looking to bring like 6 of the defensive guys back off IR if they get the bye.
They haven't had a bye since week 5. So they had the earliest of byes. So I think that team does need rest, but at the same time, here we are 17 weeks later.
Why mess with their vibe, man? Let them keep rolling.
Yeah, 12 weeks in a row, they seem to be getting better and better. Now, there's been some sticky situations where they figured out a way to win. It didn't look like they were going to win. Couple games were close. But overall, they have the most point differential in the NFL.
Looking forward here, obviously we don't know the teams yet, but the wild card weekend, there's 2 games Saturday, 3 games Sunday, and we have a Monday night wild card game, so that'll be fun to watch.
Do we really?
Oh yeah, but they haven't said where it's going to be played yet. They don't know, if it's going to be on Amazon Prime or ESPN. All these are to be determined. But yeah, we have the 2 wild card games on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and 1 on Monday. Looking forward.
Okay, well, it wouldn't really matter anyway because we're going to have to pick all the wild card games anyway because it is the tournament, right? Mm-hmm. Who you taking in Vikings Lions, by the way?
I think Dan Campbell will run out there and choke somebody if it looks like they're going to lose. So I just out of fear of Dan Campbell choking them, I think the Lions are going to
whip. Yeah, so it's going to be a tough one. This the last time they played each other in Minnesota, the final score was 31-29, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So this is going to be a nail biter of a game. I'm pretty excited for it though. Like the rest of the Sunday, I think you could probably just finish cleaning up your house from the holidays and that sort of stuff because there isn't like a lot of games that you should be focused on.
No, we touched on the ones that are going to have implication. I mean, if you wanted to watch that Ravens Texans game, you could. If or I'm sorry, that was last week. This week, if you wanted to watch that Bengals Steelers game, I think that'll be a good game. That'd be a good one to watch. But that's that's Saturday night.
That's Saturday night, so that's an easy one to watch. Sunday games, I think I'll just put it on Red Zone and hope that maybe see if the New York Giants decide to, take advantage of the Eagles resting all their starters and see if they can put up another 45 points. I don't know.
Another one that might be fun to watch, Commanders at Cowboys. I mean, the Commanders are playing really good football, and they, it's a conference divisional game, and the Cowboys are actually not playing bad football right now, so that might be an okay game.
Okay. Well, I mean, it is. There's a lot on the line though. Like when we come back next week, Black Monday would have happened, right?
Right. And the other one, Sunday afternoon game, Chiefs at Broncos. That might be worth investing your time in.
It might be worth watching just to see where the Broncos, because they control their own destiny. And they did a good job against a starting Chiefs team the last time they played.
Mm-hmm.
Something fun that you might want to watch them at a locker room with a boombox on their shoulders, and then that's a guaranteed Dolphins win.
Right. That's how you beat the Dolphins. You come out of their locker room with a boombox on your shoulder. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
if the Jets have the boombox, it's over.
I think that's going to about do it for us this week, boys and girls.
Yeah, so this is our 36th episode of 2024, so there won't be any more because we are officially at New Year's Eve. So thank everybody that stuck with us this year, and thanks for listening and sharing and liking, and hoping to get Terry back to his number of followers that he needs so he can go live on Facebook. But thank you all for your support, and we look forward to seeing, talking to you, I guess, not seeing you. We don't see you in 2025.
Boys and girls, how can you find Adam? Adam's going to tell you.
Adam can be found at Adam Off the Couch on Twitter or the X or whatever we're calling it this week, and the Gram. And you can also find us at Straight Off the Couch on Facebook or Linktree. Terry, how do they find you, bud?
You can find me on X at TREMUP, on the Gram at TerryMupTerry, and of course, the Book of Faces at Straight Off the Couch. For my broadcast partner, the ever affable and effervescent Adam Whitehall, a.k.a. Duke Kaboom. I am, of course, Terry Martin. Everybody have a good holiday. Enjoy the football. Be safe. God bless. Bye-bye, everybody.
Happy New Year.